Hi, I'm Bukeka. I'm the B.
And I'm Enolia, and I'm the E.
Together, we are Be Empowered.
The universe is calling, calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me to listen more, talk less, and hold the light. The universe is calling me to be.
We believe that deep in our souls, we hold conversations, but for whatever reasons, we do not always take the opportunity to speak from our hearts.
We want you to imagine that you're sitting right here with us now, sipping a cup of tea or coffee at our dining room table, and we're having that conversation. You know, the one that encourages, inspires, and motivates you to the infinite possibilities that your life has to offer.
Let us help you to expand your imagination, to create your beautiful dream into reality. It starts right here and right now, because the universe is calling you to be.
The universe is calling me to be. The universe is calling, calling. The universe is calling me to be. It's calling me, calling me.
Hello, everyone. This is a special edition of Be Empowered. Of course, the B stands for Bukeka, and the E stands for my dear sweet sister Enolia. Say
Hello.
hi. Yes,
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Bukeka.
absolutely. And folks, we are in for a wonderful treat today. Our guest is none other than Jerry Rapp. Jerry is an amazing artist in film and production and direction and has done some wonderful projects that he's going to tell us a little bit about and tell us a little bit more about himself. I've met Jerry through being in communities where he's heard me sing, and I appreciate that so much that he's decided to be a guest on our show today. And Jerry, we're just thrilled. We've been talking about this for days now about how excited we are to have you on our show. And if you would just go ahead and just tell us a little bit about yourself. And again, this is just to get to know you and what makes your heart sing.
Thank you so much. It's a great honor to meet you, and well, I know you, Bukeka, but great honor to meet you, Enolia. And I, what makes my heart sing is creating stories, telling really great stories. The format of that I've had to find over the years exactly what that meant. I started out. I've always wanted to do something in performing. Always wanted to be able to use the message of storytelling to get across ideas to people that might not necessarily have access to those. And so I started as a performer, wanting to be an actor as a kid. I was a very hammy kid. You can tell I'm probably a hammy adult as well, but I really got that bug very early on. I think it came out of a lot of early trauma I had as a child. I lost my father when I was really young, and my mother sort of had a spin out of her personality, and I had to mature very fast as a child. So I was pretty much like the caretaker of my mother's life at 5 years old. So I developed a sense of seeing the world differently, seeing the comedic aspects of the world. My mother was really funny. She had a great sense of humor. My grandmother was a total wacky sense of humor person. My whole family just really was extroverted in the sense that everything was met with humor or lightness or absurdity, looking at the situations. So that stuck with me. And I started to perform. I got into Theater for Young America in Kansas City very early, was given lead roles as a little kid. So I just had to take on a lot, very early on. And comedy and telling stories about all that stuff became my vent for that kind of thing. Humor was a thing that saved me through mini a early elementary school experience because my mother did have a panic attack sort of in life all the time, and she was moving us constantly. So I always had to go into new schools, and I was always confronted with kids who were testing who I was, and trying to find my way into a clique or a social situation as being a new kid. And this was constant. And I used to have just all kinds of crazy experiences. So I developed a sense of humor so I could try to navigate these personalities. One story that comes to mind is my mother transferred me into a Catholic school when I was in sixth grade. And if you can imagine being a non-religious generally person, then going into a Catholic school and being in a Catholic order of kids who all knew each other, it was really difficult. So one kid pretended to befriend me and say, "Hey, I'll take you under my wing and you're with me." And then, so I thought, oh, this is great. And he said, there's a shortcut. If you're going home, there's actually a shortcut through the woods that's better. It gets you, we can just go through the woods. And I said, okay. So we go through the woods, and in the woods were 6 other kids waiting to beat me up. And this one really tall kid just kind of came and got in my face and started threatening me. And I was completely alone. And just so out of sheer desperation, I just said, well, if I'm going to die, I might as well see what you taste like. So I licked him. And I just licked him. Just that's all I could think to do. I licked his face. And he just like stepped back and was stunned. And he said, "You're crazy, man. You want to come to a party?" So basically, that's how I got through life. I sort of just, I always looked to comedy. So I started doing stand-up comedy when I was 16 years old in a comedy club in Kansas City called Stanford and Sons. I ended up, because I was 16, I wasn't 21. I was not legal to be in the bar for 5 more years. But they thought I was funny. I went on an open mic and they said, okay, you can try something, kid. They couldn't technically bring me into the bar. They actually had to bring me up a back staircase, open a sliding glass door onto the stage. So I would step on from the outside, step onto the stage, do my 10 minutes and go back out. And then I just hang out outside, hoping that somebody would come out to talk to me. After a while, they decided that, after seeing me for a couple of years, they sort of relaxed those rules. So I was a 17-year-old and 21-year-old bar. And I won't get them in trouble because they're closed now, so it doesn't matter. But
how did you learn to tell stories? Because you're with a family, they're having comedy and play. Did your family gather around and tell stories? How did you learn to tell stories? And then what was the first story that you ever told?
Well, again, I think it was there were a lot of jokes around my household, and stories kind of probably came to me first in jokes. The joke, the setup of something. And so my grandmother was from Ireland, and she was a very raucous, I shouldn't say raucous, raucous person with no filters sometimes, and would tell jokes in really inappropriate times. And one of the jokes she told me very early on as a child was at family gatherings. This was, I'm sorry to say this joke. Maybe I shouldn't say this joke. Bless you, Nana. Bless you. So she used to tell this. Her favorite joke was, there's a couple on their wedding night, and it's their newlyweds, and the poor young bride has no idea what to do. So she calls her mother and says, "Mother, he's laying naked in the bed. I don't know what to do. I have no idea. What should I do?" And she says, "Honey, find the hardest thing in the room and put it into the wettest thing in the room. That's your advice." This is my grandmother's joke, mind you. And so she goes and gets her bowling ball and drops it into the toilet. So that was
I love it.
That was the joke that permeated in our household. And so, so in terms of story, I had an extremely helpful and beneficial teacher in my life. I know we all have those teachers that really mean something to us, but I started to become a little bit of a juvenile delinquent because I had very little adult direction. I had no father figure really, except for the sort of questionable men my mom dated. But I didn't really have a father figure, so I started to go a little bit into the juvie delinquent side. I started to hang out with kind of a tougher crowd. This was like middle schoolish area, and anyway, one of my teachers was named Mr. Bennett. He was my English teacher. He saw that I was constantly in detention, and he saw something that I had something there that was I guess, to be remarked upon. So he in a detention one time, he said, Jerry, as long as you're going to sit here and squirm and try to make other people laugh and goof off, I'm going to give you a short story, and you tell me what the theme of this short story is. And I said, what's a theme? And he said, it's just the general idea that will come forth once you read this story. You'll understand once you read it. You tell me how to sum up what a theme is in the story. And I was like, okay. So I read the story, and the story is about a guy who was in a prison cell, and he had been in a prison cell, and he was going around trying every bar. He was pushing on everything. He was trying to dig into the walls, and he was trying to dig into the floor. He was trying everything he could think of. And finally, in just sheer exhaustion, he falls against the prison cell door, and it opens. It had never been locked. And that really got to me. Even as a kid, I can remember. And so the theme I wrote down was one's prison is often oneself. And it was a really profound moment because I applied that to my personality at the time. Like, my prison is being locked into something I think that people want me to be, but I'm going to show them that I can be something else. And so I started really getting into creative writing a lot more and telling stories that way. And so, yeah, I've just been writing pretty much my whole life, just always writing stuff down. It's my therapy and my storytelling.
My question for you is, having had that experience in that juvie atmosphere, what was it that, or how did that enable you to move into a more confident you, a more a you that was more settled with who you are? How did that first experience in telling that story move you out of that kind of raucous or a ruckus place into a more feeling a sense of connection with yourself?
I think, I think I started spending a lot more time with pen to paper after that situation, because I was realizing that all these thoughts inside of me that were in turmoil could be expressed that way. That was a big breakthrough, to just know that. So then I started like writing for the school newspaper, and everything was pretty much expressed that way for a long time.
What happened, Jerry, though? Was it like a shift within you? Because I can relate to certain times in my life, right? I totally relate to your story, because I was one of those people that went to private school the whole time, and I begged and begged my parents, please let me go to public school one year. And I went to public school, right? And I was going during the 1960s, early 70s. And they were busing African American kids over to integrate the schools, right? So I lived in a black neighborhood in a white town. I was in private school, I was the only one, right? But when I was in public school, I didn't fit in. I was a private school girl. I was wearing dresses, and the other kids were wearing jeans and, the big earrings and everything. And when I went to private school, boys' hair couldn't be touching their color over their ears. I was in this private school, all these rules. So I dressed that way. The way that I spoke proper. Slang wasn't allowed in my house. So it was like I didn't relate that way. I didn't have the street talk. And I remember girls bullying me and saying, oh, you have on the same earrings, take them off. I'm not taking them off. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Boom, got jumped. Totally with you. So, I mean, that fight, that year for me, that 1 year was a huge fight for me to fight through, trying to fit in somewhere. And I remember meeting one person that ended up being my best friend. Her name is Sequina. Never forget, I love her to death. And she and I connected, and she boxed. And
Mm-hmm.
when I learned how to fight, I ended up taking karate. And when I learned how to fight, I stopped getting bullied. But it's not
Mm-hmm.
because I had to beat anyone up. It was just because the courageousness started coming out and the strength instead of the person that was fearful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I ask you, when did that changeover happen for you?
I I think I think it was definitely that experience of just somebody seeing my validity as something beyond just another delinquent kid in school. Also, the competence thing with bullies and all that happened again with my grandmother. Surprisingly, she was just such an inspiration. But she was from old school Ireland, and she saw me one day come home with a bloody lip, and I was getting picked on in a locker by some kids, and she said, you know what, I in Ireland what you do is, the saying there is this a private fight or can anyone get into it? So she said, if you get attacked in Ireland, they just rail as fast as they can with punches, so fast that you're going at 10 times the speed of another person. She said, just fly punches at his face. And I said, Nana, this is a big guy. And she said, it won't matter, he won't know what's coming, he will never see it coming. And so I was picked on one day, and I just turned around and flew at this person, and they never bothered me again, ever. And I'm not saying that's a justification, but something in the instillment of the confidence that my grandmother had, her fighting spirit. She was a
Yeah.
very diminutive person. She was like 110-pound, 5'1" little Spitfire. So she didn't take any grief from anyone. She always came back with and showed me great confidence that way. And I don't want to go too much off on the grandmother anecdotes, but a very funny story about her that I love is that it was snowing one day, and we used to play pranks on her sometimes because she had a great sense of humor, real almost too good. So it snowed one day, and me and my friend Jack, who was another little degenerate friend of mine, we decided that it would be funny if, when grandmother made her way up the driveway, this little trek she made every day to get her mail in the morning, that we would wait for her and pelt her with snowballs. So when she started to go, that she was like this little tottering woman going up the driveway, and we jumped out and we threw snowballs, and she screamed and ran and covered her head and ran back in and said, "Oh, you miserable boys." And so we laughed all the way to school, and we went through school laughing about it. And I came home, and grandmother didn't say anything. I was like, okay, it's all good. So had a normal day, went to bed, was in the middle of a deep sleep, when suddenly the covers were pulled down and a bucket of ice water was dumped into my crotch by my grandma by my grandmother. And she said, "That's for today."
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so I'm never going to mess with this woman again.
Right.
Oh
So
my God, that's so great. Did you have one of those defining moments?
Oh,
Okay.
I'm listening to you guys. So I'm gonna talk about my mother. She was the same, very, tiny but mighty, right? And I think she was very much the part of why I have the confidence that I have, because she backed me. I mean, she was one of those parents that totally backed you. So we moved a
mm,
lot, right? And every time you move, you got to prove yourself to the kids. You got to, stand up to the bully. And that was my experience. So one day, these kids, I got off the bus, and this girl decided to pick a fight with me. And I play the flute. I happened to have my flute in my hand. So to kind of fend her off, I did like this, and my flute case hit her in the face. Well, then all of her
mm.
friends are just, ready to pelt me and jump on me. My mother called the police, had the child expelled from school. Then
Wow.
her friends were so mad at my mother for doing that, they decided they're going to walk down the street and just kind of be like, well, we're the boss in town. So here's my, and so mom, I'm just telling. But anyway, she got in the car and threatened to run them down. These kids were
Oh, wow.
running down the street trying to get away from this yellow 1978 Plymouth barreling down for
Mm,
them. But what it gave to me that moment, even though I was quite terrified that they were all going to die. However, but it made me think, wow, somebody's got my back. And that gave me a real, sense of confidence that I knew that there was always going to be somebody there to support me, to love me
Mm,
in a mighty way. And that really carried over into everything.
mm.
So I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Don't poke the mama bear.
Don't poke.
Don't poke the
Don't.
mama
That's
bear.
right.
And so I'm listening to this, and I have to tell you this story really quickly too. That I remember I had gotten into a fight that sixth grade year while I was in public school, and another young lady, because because I was the outsider, I was always the one that was targeted. And so this one girl, they sent word out that they wanted to fight you. That's how it went. And
Mm.
so you hear through the rumor mill that somebody wants to fight you, somebody wants to fight you, somebody wants to fight you. I'm like, oh gosh, so I go home. And I tell my sister, and my sister wasn't always there because we were 15 years apart. She would travel around. She was touring. I think she was doing hair on tour at the time. She would tour.
Mm.
She'd come back. What's going on? And I'm like, I'm in another situation. This girl wants to fight me. Who wants to fight you? I say the girl's name. She goes, I know that family. I got this, right? And so she goes and she talks to the girl. I come back. I go to school the next day. Nothing. And I see her, and the girl's like leaving me alone. And I'm like, yay. So I come back home and I go, sis, what did you say? Well, what happened was that, and this is a BE empowered moment, right? What happened was that when she found the girl and she said, I want to talk to you because I know your family. And she goes, I want to talk to your daughter, blah, 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 right? Lynn. And so Lynn comes out and she goes, I'm here to talk to Lynn. She goes, I'm Lynn. She goes, no, I want to talk to Lynn. She goes, I'm Lynn. She's like, you can't be Lynn. Why can't I be Lynn? You're too pretty. Not an intelligent, beautiful girl like you would want to just be like a street fighter. I want to talk to the girl that looks like the street fighter. And she had complimented her and just given her something that she was lacking
Mm.
so beautifully that the
Mm.
girl was like, I'm not going to stoop that low to fight. And she left me alone. And
Wow.
that showed me something so deep
Creative
and
too.
so unbelievable. Yeah, that words are everything. The
Yes.
power of your words, and that if you can crack through the shell of like the person who's bullying, what they're really lacking is the love that they missed
True.
in the first place, all the
Yes.
time, every moment. So, yeah, that was
It-
a big, big lesson learned
yeah.
for me.
It's so important in those formative years, like the things we're remembering now, that are etched into us when somebody just takes the time to show the value of somebody who wouldn't normally be seen. It's so life-changing. It means everything.
It really, really is. So there we are. We're all in high school now, and I want to hear about the high school years because I remember when I was in high school, I was testing everything out. I was in the drama club, and I loved acting because my sister was an actress, and I loved dance and I loved all of the stuff. But I also, I excelled in mathematics and sciences also. So, what was high school like for you? Both. What was high school like for both of you, when you were at that time when you could pick, choose, explore, and everything? And
Mm.
did you take the lead in any plays, or what did you do? And I'm really asking both you and Bukeka.
I tell you what, singing saved me. Singing improved my grades
Mm.
because the teachers were like, "You're amazing. Here's an A." Uh, Singing was something that got me into outside of high school. So I began to do children's plays and toured Michigan doing Goldilocks and the Three Bears. I had my little blonde mop wig and it was televised and everything. Singing really in high school made a huge difference. And what it what it also did for me though was to really understand my power because I didn't know it at first. The first solo that I was actually in junior high school, and my parents were in the audience, and I don't remember the song that it was, but they were like, "I wow, she's 12. I didn't know that she could do that." And so, as I began to really embrace that and started to be the I was Mame. So you have all of
Oh
these.
wow.
Yeah. So the poster was Mame with an afro, right, and a hat,
Mm-hmm.
and just having all of those experiences where I could really step into my voice. That was key, not only from the singing, but from being able to express myself with other people, with my teachers, with my friends, with the media. And so high school was really pretty fun because of the fact that I had learned how to embrace my voice, vocally, as well as being a leader and someone who people really appreciated me being there. It wasn't like I was the popular kid, but I was someone that people looked up to. And it was because of the fact that I had really found my voice in high school. What
And
about you?
thankfully you used it so beautifully today and touched so many with it.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
Yeah.
you.
What about you, Jerry?
It's interesting. I think performing and voice and all that saved me as well. It was so valuable to me. I never really thought of myself as a singer or anything, but you'll appreciate this, I think, Bukeka. There was a music teacher that I had, and I was in third grade, and I would never sing or anything in front of people, and this is why. There was a music teacher in third grade. I was in a pageant with a bunch of other kids, probably 20, 25 children. We were all singing this song that we had rehearsed, and she's conducting, and we're singing, and it was the day before the performance, and we're out on the stage, and she's na 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 na, na, and then she starts to go, na, 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 and she looks right at me, and I'm singing, and she goes, Jerry. I said, yeah, and she goes, don't. And I said, and she was saying, don't sing. So I went, okay. And this is a moment that scars children. We're talking about the encouraging moments. These are the other moments. So when I came down off the platform, she said, Jerry, tomorrow, just in the performance, just open your mouth like you're singing, but don't actually sing. And I said, what? She said, I don't think you're sounding good, honey. Just don't sing tomorrow. Open your mouth like you are, though. So, so I was devastated, and I never sang for anybody for a long time. Then I got into a play in junior high school, and it was called Meet Me at the Fair. And I played the mayor or something, and he had one song. And I was like, oh my God, the role's great, but I have to sing a song in front of people. And again, I had a great teacher that was so influential, and he said, Jerry, don't see these people here around you. You're just imagine you go into your door and you lock your bathroom, and you're going to sing this song to the mirror. And he put me in a mindset, and it got to this point, and my heart was racing, like I'm going to have to sing a song in front of people. They get to this point, I just do what he said, and I imagined that nobody was there, and I sang the song, and I belted it out with confidence. After it was over, I looked back, and everybody stood up and applauded. And I was, whoa, how'd that happen? And so it was in there all the time. The voice, there was no problem with the voice. It was in the confidence of it. And, to this day, I love to sing to this day, but I just do it with complete abandon and no judgment. I'm a big karaoke fan. I love karaoke. So karaoke is all about no judgment. And that's the way to do it. And since then, I found nuances to my voice because I explore it more, and I hear it more, and I get feedback. I think it's the same in performing. A really quick anecdote just about that Catholic school. I had a really sinister nun who was sort of the warden character. Her name was Sister Frances, but her nickname was Sister Frank because she was extremely masculine and tough. And so when I came into the school, she took it upon herself to make me particularly miserable. She had a rapport with other kids, but she sort of made me, stand out a little bit and put me down in certain ways and disciplined me for no reasons. So I knew she didn't like me. So I was an actor, I had come up through the ranks as a 10-year-old or child actor, and I was in theater and all kinds of stuff. So it came time to audition for the Christmas Carol, and they were going to do the show, the Christmas Carol. And I auditioned for the ghost for Marley, I believe. The ghost, and so at one point, the ghost is like screaming at Scrooge, and he's telling him off, and he's like, "You, Scrooge, will be damned for eternity." And there's this big speech that he's giving Scrooge, and Scrooge's supposed to be shaking in his boots. And I looked her right in the eye, and she was in there for the auditions because she ran the theater group. And when I did the audition, I just looked her right in the eye and I said it right to her, so mean and fiercely. And I saw that I stunned her a little bit. Like she had this moment, and she didn't cast me. She did not cast me. I was like, I nailed that. I went out and thought that was the best reading I've ever given, because I wanted to scare her, this person. I wanted to use my power on the stage to have a little bit of intimidation over this person who had intimidated me the entire time. But she didn't cast me. I went out and looked at the list, and I was like, it was one of her favorites, that got cast. So
Yeah.
that was really weird. But yeah, performing, singing, the act of using your voice, the act of storytelling, that's gotten me through life. I couldn't imagine not having that. And I attribute that to some really great teachers who saw my potential, and my mother, who supported anything I wanted to do, my family. I was raised by four women, essentially. I was raised by my mother, aunt, grandmother, and sister. So I really value that, that I had feminine energies around me, not masculine male energies. That is really important.
Well, then you get it, because a lot of times, it's so funny. You're saying you have feminine energies around us, and we as women right now have a lot of masculinity around us. I did a corporate stint, and like all of the male energy, meet the man, go head to head with the man, put on the man suit, and go to work like the man. And that's what's taking place right now. And women have lost their femininity, in that it's okay to wear a dress. You don't have to wear a suit, a power suit. you know Even that, a power suit. No, it's not. It's just a suit, and it's very masculine, and that's what you do. But
Mm-hmm.
I want to go back a little bit, because I loved you guys talking about your high school days, and I just wanted to share too that I got a chance to do a little acting when I was in high school. I got the lead play in my senior year. It was called Bitter as Candide, and I got to play this like really old woman who was a firecracker in it. But I remember just doing that, having the opportunity to sing, and I had produced a fashion show also. So it was just like I got to do all these fun things in school. And I was I was the complete all the way around, because the academics were good and solid, because I came from private school. Your grades couldn't suffer. That's what got me the opportunity to be able to do everything else. My parents would never question it as long as my grades were solid. And then I remember going from high school to college, and the first thing I did was I went to University of Massachusetts as a mathematics major,
Mm.
and yeah, and got my degree. But the first thing I did was I joined Spectrum in Motion, which was a dance company dedicated to people's experiences and diversity, and loving it, and dance with them like the whole 5-6 years. Matter of fact, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary a little while ago. It's like I'm not that old yet, but I am. And just having those moments, those were the moments. Those were the moments that gave me my courageous, my strength, my empower part of myself, and loving those moments. So then there we are. We're in high school. We're kind of going to college. When did you choose film? When did the choice of film come?
Oh, good question. So, gosh, a circuitous route there. So I was at UMKC, University of Missouri, Kansas City, in communications and studying. I wanted to be in some sort of acting or writing or something. I wasn't quite sure. And then I read about, okay, so let's see how this happened. So I'd been going back and forth to LA a bit. I went to the Academy of Dramatic Arts in Pasadena as a
Mhm.
performer. So I was kind of familiar a little bit with LA, and knew that I wanted to be in that scene somehow. When I was at UMKC, I learned about a program at USC, the University of Southern California, that was called visual anthropology. It was a new degree that was starting. It was going to be about people just making documentaries about tribes in Brazil or bush tribes or what have you. It was an exploration of different cultures that was media based. So I thought, this is great. I want to do this. So I applied and got into this program called Visual Anthropology at USC. And I'm out there studying anthropology. I'm reading these archaic books. And so the film school just got built on the other side of campus. And it was donated by the film school was funded by Spielberg and Lucas. And that's Danny Spielberg and Ed Lucas, by the way. It's not anybody famous, but no, it was sponsored by the guys.
Yeah.
And it was huge, and it was this big structure, and they put all this money into it. So the cameras for the anthropology guys, we had to go over and check out from the cinema school, and they'd give us like the fifth thing down the list, like all these good things are out, but here's the one that you wind up, and here's that one. So they give us this thing, and it's falling apart, and these are the things we had to work with, these little box cameras that you wind up. And then they're handing out these high-tech cameras to all the other film school guys. And I'm walking past all the film school, and I see these cranes and these things moving and people carrying lights and actors running around and stories being developed. And I'm looking around the campus and thinking, this is what I want to do. I don't actually want to be sweating in the jungles with my wind-up camera. I actually want to be in the studios and doing this kind of stuff. So I started to get into that a little more. And I started to apply to the film school aspect of this and still tell narrative stories. I didn't think I was cut out for, frankly, the documentary aspect. When it sounded very romantic, but when I really looked into the logistics of it and listened to how these filmmakers and artists had to dedicate their entirety of their beings to these ideas, I just didn't know if I could do justice to telling these stories like other people could with great passion. But I could tell stories in the narrative fictional world very easily. So anyway, I applied to film school 3 times, and finally they just got tired of hearing from me, and they said, sure, come on in. And I got into one of the best film schools in the country, and just had a great journey and experience there. I was kind of a lone wolf type. I like to work a little bit on the outskirts of things. USC was designed to give people a really crash course in the commercial aspect of filmmaking. It wasn't like NYU, like Tisch, that's devoted more toward being an auteur, or it was more developed toward being able to navigate a studio situation. So with that in mind, you went through sort of a studio filter when you were making anything. You went through kind of a mini studio aspect. The faculty sort of formed this firewall, and you had to get past them to make it. So it was very challenging, but it did really thicken my skin. And then, so I'm in school, and I went to work on a film in Florida as a production assistant. And I ended up meeting a guy there who was also working in film. And we hit it off and said, hey, this script that we're working on is terrible. Do you agree? It's terrible. And it was terrible. We could do better. We could come up with something that's better. So we did. And we came with a few stories, and we wrote a script and we pitched it. And sure enough, we ended up with an agent. We sold it to Imagine Films. This was a year before I graduated from college. So I was thinking, this is great. This is the way it's going to be. So we ended up selling 2 or 3 films that we wrote to Imagine, and some others. We sold a couple of TV movies of the week things, and then some other ideas. And I started writing independent films that were not necessarily commissioned, but they were what was coming out of me and what I cared about.
I want to get into the writing piece of it. And I'm going to start it off with Bukeka, because Bukeka, I love the way that you write. And I would love for you to share how writing comes to you. And then I want to go back to Jerry and talk about how writing comes to you.
Wow. Well, it's interesting because for me, it's a very spiritual experience. When you say comes to you, that's really how it happens. the songs that have been the most meaningful are the ones that are completely downloaded, where I hear everything. And the two instruments that I play are flute and piano, but I hear guitar, I hear drums, I hear the strings. I don't know how to play any of those instruments, but I hear it very clearly. So in the writing process, I really have to collaborate with other musicians to really take what's in my head and put it to the canvas or the sheet or the recording or whatever. But it's a wonderful experience because there are things that will trigger the whole concept. For example, one of the songs that Jerry's may have heard is a song that I wrote called "I'll Light a Candle in Your Name."
Hmm.
And this song that I wrote in 1992, so 91, 92, is one that has continued to be requested all these years later because of an experience that I had with a friend. Speaking of betrayal, there was a friend of mine that I felt like I had a real betrayal with them, but I was also going through a spiritual awakening within myself. And so for me, I wanted the song that came to me was the lyrics were about friendship. I am a friend that you can count on. And I know you'll build me up when I am down. You can count on me to share your goals and problems. And I know you'll always be around. And in your time of need, I'll light a candle in your name. And so when that happened and I was going through that spiritual experience, all of those lyrics just came down and I could just write it on out just as it was coming to me. So that kind of aspect of creativity is a beautiful experience and inspired by people who have that same kind of experience because it just really opens the door to just keep doing that, just keeping yourself open, keeping yourself aware of what you're going through, and allowing the creativity from the ethers, from spirit, from wherever you want to call it, to come through and keep yourself open to let it um, come to something that is tangible, like a song or a film or whatever the case may be.
Hmm.
What about you, Jerry?
I think, just like you said, I think things find you, creative sparks are channeled through us, and um, we're the hosts of those. My biggest problem in writing is my writer's block that comes from having too many ideas. And one of the most common writer's blocks is that you don't finish one idea because you're too distracted by other ideas. And I have this constantly in my life. Like I'll set out to write something, and then I'll read a story and say, no, that'd be a great story. Instead, it's more relevant. Or this person who's a friend of mine just moved into a position to do these kinds of films, so maybe I should do this kind of film. Writing for the opportunity versus writing for the story, but I think what happens is my test is that if I come up with a great idea and I'm still thinking about it tomorrow, it's worth writing. If it goes away, it probably wasn't meant to be put down just yet. But there are some ideas that haunt me so much that they just literally won't leave me alone. And usually everything that I turn my attention to are those things. I listen to my gut on that. Um, and even if that means that I have to just take time away from something else that might be lucrative to do something that's a better story, sometimes I'll just opt for the better story because that's what's trying to channel through me. And I believe in that. I think stories find people because all of us have like things that we tell and are so personal to us, but are so foreign to somebody else. Like, why did it come to us? Why did your song Bukeka find you, and not somebody else? It's very fascinating because the stories that I see, they lay out just like you hear the bass and the drums and you hear, the other parts. I see the whole movies. I see every detail and just try to capture it as it's happening before me rather than say, I need to now force a scene. I need to have this happen between these people. I just really say, I'll just be in the room and you just talk and I'll just write it down, sort of thing, you know. Oh, and just I wanted to add to that. If you have great characters, if you've thought those through, that will write your story. You don't necessarily need to push them along. If you figured them out enough, they'll tell you what they want you to write. That's what I found.
I want to share and go deeper a little bit on that a little bit more because I write as an author and I also draw and I work with people. And when you said it channels through you, I'm gonna tap into that a little bit because when I'm drawing, the 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 artwork informs me when it's done. When I'm speaking to someone or I'm orating to a group, it's like the divine tells me what they need to hear. You know, it doesn't matter what the plan was. It doesn't matter what I devised that says, okay, this has to happen, and I was asked to do this or I was asked to do that. No, 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 no,
Mm.
no, no. You see the group, you see the people, you feel the need,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and you start talking to them and getting to know them, and then what comes through is exactly what they need to hear to move or shift or inspire or to pull out what it is that you're looking for within that group or that story. When I write, and I this is where I'm getting to both of you. When I write, it's like I get lost in the story, and really what I'm doing is writing what I see.
Mm-hmm.
I'm there. I'm submerged. I'm in this other place other than here, and it's like, okay, I can smell the hyacinths, and
Mm.
I feel the breeze that's going through and the gentleness of the sun warming my skin. And so that's what I'm able to write. I'm able to write from the senses that I am from that other place. And then, okay, this is how the story unveils itself. And
Mm-hmm.
I write that way. What is it like when you go into the writing? What is it like when you go into the song? And Bukeka shared what it's like for her into the song, but what is it? Is it like that?
Yeah, it is like that. It's like being a participant, really.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really in the mode, you're being a participant. And I always, when people say things like, I really want to write and I don't know how and I don't know how to start. They say things like, I just sit down and I put the page in and, nothing comes. That's the most natural place to be, because when you're forced into creation, if somebody says, sing a song, Bukeka, or be funny, or write something really quick, Jerry, you can't do it. You have to. It's anytime. So the blank paper is the worst way to write. The best way to write, in my opinion, and I used to have conflicts a little bit with my screenwriting teacher in school, because the way I would always write would be, there's something that there's the spark, right? There's the nugget, the nucleus of whatever it was. So in my case, sometimes I'll just see a scene from a movie. It'll just show up in my head. I'll see a character walking into a situation, saying some things, and then it's really intriguing or something, and it's a really great setup, and I'll see that scene, and I don't know why, and I don't know who these people are. But what I usually do is I try to capture that one scene, and wherever that falls in the movie. Is that an opening? Is that in the middle? Is that the end of a movie? Or is it just a really pivotal, cool scene? But whatever it is, I'll write it down. And then I'll start to figure out what led to that scene. What led up to that one scene? Who are these people? Okay, so you put a scene in the front of it. The thing that happened right before the person walked through the door, what did he do? Okay, well, he drove up and got out of his car. What does the car look like? Where did he get the car? Whose car is it?
Yeah.
That's how the story starts to unfold for me. It goes one scene and stacks up like a centipede on the edges. And I used to drive my screenwriter teacher crazy, because he would go, no, that's not how you write. You can't write that way. You got to figure out who these people are from the beginning, and you got to figure out what their end goal is. And you don't need to know where they're going, and you have to have your map, because you're lost without it. And yes, that is true to some point. I actually write a treatment for everything I do now. I write a map, but I also allow myself to go off the map if needed. If the character is saying, I don't want to do what you told me to do, I'm going this way, I listen to that more than I listen to my initial map. it's sort of supernatural in a way, but I don't try to. I figure these characters are floating around, and I'm just capturing and serving them. I'm not trying to manipulate characters. I'm serving what their existence, if that makes sense.
Yes, it makes perfect
Yes,
sense.
makes
Go ahead,
perfect
Bukeka.
sense. I tell this story whenever I sing this song called Every Day. And what happened is that, just like we were sharing, a piece of it came. And the only part that showed up for a year was this lyric. Every day, I am with you every day, every day, every day, every day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so a year's passed. Can we get the rest of the song, please? Because I need to know. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot of an like an office supply store, and I was kind of going through that time. You know, you have your ebb and the flow of your life, and I was kind of in that ebb, and the rest of the lyrics just boom, just dropped right in. When I pray, what do I pray for? When I'm alone, will I be comforted? Sometimes the problem seems so big, there's just no way around it. Sometimes I can't see the forest for the trees, and everything just flowed. And I tell you, that was a beautiful moment. Just I
Mm-hmm.
was in that parking lot for about 45 minutes, and but it was exquisite. It was an exquisite moment, and the song is beautiful. It brings me to tears just
Yeah.
hearing. Anyway,
Oh, and that's a great analogy. The chorus of a song. You know, sometimes we'll just hear the hook or a chorus,
right.
and then we have to figure out what came to lead to that chorus. What's the storyline leading up to the thematic idea, and that's very much applied to writing as well. Like, if you can figure out that chorus, as it were, of your fictional story, you can just come around and build up to that, and so.
Yeah. So, Jerry, if you think about all of the projects that you've done, is there one particular project that stands out where you were just in the zone writing that just flowed like it wasn't anything?
I wrote a film called Mojave Phone Booth that I was okay. So there's two things I was very much in the zone with, and that one, it's about a phone booth that's out in the middle of the desert, and these people show up to get on the other end of the line for advice or something. It's a kind of a metaphysical film. It's a very heady, film, but that one wrote itself really easily because I just started seeing these figures show up to the phone booth, and I just started listening to their stories, and very interesting spiritual connection with that movie in particular. And I worked with a director who was pretty true to the text, and I guess about 80% of that movie was what I intended. So I feel very good about that movie, and the cast was great, and it was like a little family that made that film. And then there was another one that I was working on that hasn't been made yet, but it's based on F. Scott Fitzgerald stories. And I was commissioned at one point to write this script, and I was really blocked, and I just didn't know what was going to happen. It was kind of coming up to a deadline, and I had to try to crack this short story to become a feature film, and I wasn't connecting. And then one night I sat down to write it, and this tempest of a storm happened outside, and then it calmed down and died down, and I kind of did a silent prayer in my head, and I said, F. Scott Fitzgerald, if you're listening, I really need to know if I'm the guy to do this, if I'm worthy of being in the company of F. Scott Fitzgerald. Am I blocked because I can't, you don't want me to do this? And then almost as if an answer, the tempest rose up again, and the tree started flying around, and I was like, and then suddenly I was just hit with how to crack this story. Mysteriously, I just saw the whole thing lay out before me. It was as if I called out to the spirits of the literary gods, and they answered somehow. So that script wrote itself kind of easily too. That flowed very easily. So I think there is something when you tap into the
Mhm.
mystical energies of writing. It's not just a craft or a process, it's a connection. It's connecting to the zeitgeist, you know.
Yeah.
It's connection and it's your gift.
Hmm.
And we all have our gifts. It's just that some of us just don't know how to tap into them sometimes.
Yeah.
And as simple as asking and allowing and then just trusting yourself. Because if you didn't trust yourself to write, this is exactly what it's supposed to be, then many stories would float in our heads and they would never get down. I remember a time when I go through these dream states sometimes, and I had been dreaming a lot this particular time, and it was almost like somebody visited me in my dream. And I woke up at like 3 a.m., jumped out of bed, got a piece of paper, and they told me verbatim what to write down. And then I looked at it in the morning, and it was definitely a figure in, I don't know if it's medieval times, warrior times, but I call it a poem because it was just like a page and a half long, but they told me exactly what to say, and it rhymed everything.
Hmm.
And I look at that and I was like, there's no way me, Enolia, could have wrote that.
Yeah.
Okay. But somebody wrote through me because they wanted their story known, and I honor that. So I have that poem. I, it'll come out at some point. But I find that my dream states aren't my dream states. My dream states most of the times are visitations. They're the
Hmm.
places where I go where I'm supposed to be writing about. They're the insight I'm supposed to have to make full what I'm doing here, and yeah.
You probably have this too. Do you dream songs? Do you dream full songs?
I do. I have had that on a couple of occasions, and actually on both of those occasions is when I was co-writing with someone.
Okay.
So they essentially said, hey, see if you can do something with this, and that since that's not the normal way that songs come to me, I generally don't have something right there at that time. But when it does come to me, it usually comes in a dream.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a song called Just Like the Phoenix, and all she had was, just like the Phoenix, I'm rising from the ashes. It's time to tell your story. And so I slept on it, and I just had this whole vision of the phoenix rising, and what that is like for the phoenix rising. And I think also because of the maturity that I am at this stage in my life, it was also very apropos to rise again. But yeah, and it's pretty. You have those visual, and you wake up and you go, wow, that was really nice. Now let me
Mm.
make sure I capture all of that before I lose it. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's fun to have those come in that way.
Yeah, I dream in songs sometimes too, which is great. I'm doing a musical project, and there's songs that just are all there completely, all arranged in perfect MP3 quality.
Beautiful.
Amazing. It's
Well,
amazing.
I'd like to have a final question, so to speak. I have a 6 a.m. clubhouse gathering with a few women, and they do a question of the day. And the question of the day today was, if you were to be in your own movie,
Hmm.
who would play you?
Oh boy.
What kind of genre would it be? And what kind of what inspired it? And so I'd like to ask you guys that. And Anolia, we'll start with you. Who?
Ah! If I had my own movie, a lot of times when I think about, oh, if I lived during that time, I'd be dead because my mouth would be going, and they'd be ready to me right away because I'm so like rebellious. So I think it would be present day. I think it would be present day. And I would be the shaman. I would be the medicine woman. I would be the one that you want to, my life has been so interesting and rewarding. And sometimes I would ask the creator, why me? How did I get to meet these people? Why did they accept me? What did I do to be blessed this way?
Mm.
And nobody would believe if I told them what just happened to me or who I just met or what I just observed in meeting that person, because that person might have been more on the spirit side than they were here, present here, or that this just happened to me and people would call it miracles or blah, 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 blah. But I know good and well it wasn't. So, that I have this belief system that's so expansive. So who would I would be me. I would be me. I play
Mm,
me right now, and I probably, would share my life and tell the things that I keep here in the heart and actually show them to say, wake up. It's
mhm,
here. That our behaviors and these negative uh, attitudes and emotions we have are just a distraction to show
mm.
how powerful you are. You know? Yeah. I think that's what I
Mm.
would do.
I'd see that movie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hmm.
I'm still playing it. It's still going. Sometimes I wonder when I'm here in Africa. I've seen some
Yeah.
things here too. you know? And I thank
Wow.
the creator that connection is strong, because I guess that the saying is really, really true, that you're never given what you can't handle, but sometimes you're asked to handle a lot.
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
What about you,
what about
Jerry?
you? Yeah, what
Oh,
about you?
it would probably be a comedy,
Yeah.
maybe a rom-com. I'm not sure. I think I'd be played by Charlize Theron.
Oh, I love it.
I love her.
Yeah, yeah. Just because I want to meet Charlize Theron, but
Right.
um, no. I've actually thought about this a bit because when I was going through my divorce and I was living in LA and everything was kind of crumbling, I wrote a script called Shiny Objects, uh, which was basically my personality in the movie, and it was this character that basically chased some shiny objects that had no substance ultimately, and had big life lessons happen, and that was definitely my life for a while, chasing shiny things that had no substance. And yeah, I had to go through that. So yeah, I guess that would be my movie. It'd be a rom-com, slightly dark comedy, very offbeat. And I always thought Jason Sudeikis. I love Jason Sudeikis. He's kind of a weird counterpart for me because we're both from Kansas City, um, and he is. If I had stayed in Kansas City and gone through the comedy scene, I think our lives would have been a very parallel life. So I think it would be poetic if he played me in my movie.
Yeah. I love it. I love
And
it.
what about you, Bukeka? Can't
Well,
get off the
all
hook.
right. Well, what I told them in the group today is because my parents were so influential in my upbringing because it was during the civil rights movement and they were very involved in that. I mean, my mother would tell me stories of how I would go to marches at 3 years old and have my fist up and, saying freedom now and black power and all of that before I could say anything else. And it occurred to me that having a story about what it's like as a child in that arena might be really interesting to some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know who would play me, but I like Kimberly Elise a lot. She's just one of my favorite actresses. So,
Mm,
and I love her smile. So people are always saying, "Oh, you have a great smile," and I love her smile. So that's
mm,
kind of how I came to that. But just the being in Detroit, being around Motown, all the music that occurred. Such a great time. But and a lot of times we think about the adults that were actually, formalizing those meetings and doing those things. But what about the kids? What are
yeah,
the kids doing?
that's a yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I thought about.
Did you write any of that down, or is that just something that's been tumbling around for
Uh,
you?
that that's been tumbling around
Hmm.
since 6 o'clock this morning.
Okay, okay. Well, if you could have something to us by Monday, we'd appreciate it.
Wow. Well, this has been so heartfelt um, in for me, it's just been an extremely wonderful experience. And I thank you, Jerry, for saying yes to this. And
Mm.
always, Enolia, you are my sister from New York via Angola, Africa, and I'm excited that we are all here together today. Any final thoughts from anyone?
I just want to, yeah, this is wonderful and empowering to tell people that they do have these talents in them, and it is in them. I believe everybody has a voice, everybody has abilities. They just need to tap them. And so many times, as I said, people say, "How do I write a screenplay? How do I do this? How do I do that?" If you really want to write a screenplay, the best book I recommend is a book called How to Write a Movie in 21 Days. It's a cheerleading sort of little pamphlet-y book that will really help people who are writing for the first time. And then my friend Scott Myers, who is a mentor of mine, just wrote a book called The Protagonist's Journey. And Scott is somebody whose writing I have been following for many years, and he's a genius. And those are two things I would really recommend if anybody is looking to write their life story. Check into those two books.
Okay. All right.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. And I'm sitting here thinking about what tips would I give. And I always love saying, dream a beautiful dream or you will be dreamt. So if you don't hold a vision for yourself and you don't envision yourself successful and allow life to be a walk to that success, then all you'll end up doing is being judged and perceived and fulfilling other people's judgments and perceptions and lose you in the midst of those. So hold the vision for yourself. Tap into your own courage and trust yourself. Allow yourself to come forward and trust what comes through you as well as from you. And know that it is enough. So I would leave you at that. Thank you. Thank you, Bukeka. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, guys. That was
Yes.
lovely.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for watching this special edition of BE Empowered, and you have a wonderful, blessed day.
We hope you enjoyed the show. We look forward to bringing you more shows in the future. To learn more about our co-hosts, check out their websites, www.bukekastyle.com and www.enolia.live. Learn about their masterclasses for conscious transformation, their personal coaching, along with their international retreats and expeditions. Are you an entrepreneur looking for another line of income? Check out www.planetmarketing.com/Enolia and www.planetmarketing.com/bblakemore. We are here to transform your life. Thank you for listening.